This is exactly who to stash on your bench to guarantee yourself success later down the line of the fantasy season, even in the next few weeks that aren't the basic guys everybody talks about and wastes your time with. So thank you for clicking on this video. Make sure to subscribe if you are new. Hit that like button as well. It helps me out a ton as a creator. Make sure to stick around to the end of the video though, because I'll have a list of defenses we can pick up and stash ahead of time that have a really good matchup in the next few weeks coming. You don't want to miss that. But by far, the best number one stash we need to pick up, put your waiver claim on him now, is Jalen McMillan. Unfortunately, Chris Godwin likely out for the rest of the season. Mike Evans, 3 weeks. Both of the Bucs' number one wide receivers are out, which is going to open up an average of about 18 targets a game free for the rest of these guys in this offense. So someone has to go get those targets, and Jalen McMillan is going to be that guy. If we go ahead and look at his numbers, as a rookie this season, his very first game in the league, 83% of the snaps, and he continues to see that relative mark until he gets injured, and then in week 6 he comes back, a little bit playing back from injury. Week 7 last week, he has no choice but to fill in for Mike Evans after he goes out almost the first drive. 60% of the snaps in that one, leading to 8 targets. That was the most targets out of any wide receiver once Mike Evans left the game, and he was also second in snaps out of every wide receiver in this offense, behind Chris Godwin, obviously. So everything is pointing to him clearly being the number 2 wide receiver and number 1 wide receiver for this week coming. You could make the case, okay, maybe Sterling Shepard is going to get some snaps, Trey Palmer. You look at the numbers and the efficiency stats for those guys this season, they aren't good. They're nowhere near what you want them to be. Again, McMillan is leading this team in efficiency outside of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And the team is 9th in passing attempts, 2nd in passing yards, 1st in passing touchdowns, and 4th in overall passing offense. Without their top 2 guys, it's going to come down a little bit, but they're still not going to change their offensive philosophy all the way on the other side of the spectrum. They're at the top. They're still going to be top 10. Please make sure he's your number 1 claim and stash for this week. I promise you he's still out there. But Xavier Legette, while everybody is focusing on these guys filling in from injury like Juwan Jennings, like Ricky Pearsall, like McMillan, which are guys you should be getting, Xavier Legette has been dropping his roster percentage and getting dropped in leagues as well ever since week 4 essentially. And that's only going to continue after putting up 2.9 points last week against the Commanders defense, which is considered one of the easiest to pass on as far as fantasy statistics. Since his week 4 breakout game where he had 10 targets, 6 receptions, a touchdown, and just shy of 20 fantasy points, he's been averaging 2.7 targets per game, nowhere near his expectation. But you gotta remember, 1, this guy's a rookie, 2, this guy's on the Panthers. Historically, rookies take a little bit more time to get acclimated into the offense. I mean, look at Marvin Harrison. It's less of a him issue and more of an offensive line Kyler Murray issue. But even then, after bye weeks, it's just a historical fact. Rookies bump up their snap percentage, eventually bumping up their usage and targets per game. That's what we're going to see here with Xavier Legette. That bye week doesn't come until week 11. That's just more time for him to make his case here. But what really is great about Xavier Legette and why we need to be stashing him is that there is a real chance that Deontay Johnson gets traded. He's already had interest from the Commanders and other teams. I really do believe he is going to come off this team. Andy Dalton is not good, and the Panthers defense as well is also absolutely terrible. One of the worst in the league, allowing some of the most fantasy points to wide receivers, quarterbacks, and running backs. That only means the defense is not going to help them out. They're allowing 20 plus points a game. Andy Dalton in this offense has no choice but to pass to stay in these games. That's going to help Xavier Legette with his target share. Adam Thielen will also be returning soon into this offense. You can stash him as well. He does have previous experience with Andy Dalton and the Panthers. But Xavier Legette will be my number 1 option, and I truly do believe that something's going to happen. Bryce Young is going to get traded. Deontay Johnson is going to get traded. It's only a matter of time for this Panthers team. But if you look even deeper at wide receiver, Troy Franklin is an amazing stash, and let me tell you why for a few reasons. Yes, the Broncos offense isn't necessarily great. They haven't been the most predictable as far as the NFL goes. They'll have great games, then they'll have some pretty bad ones, and Bo Nix looks decent. They get some pretty decent matchups coming as well. But Troy Franklin, the Broncos' 4th round rookie, played at Oregon with Bo Nix. They have chemistry in college. Now they come to the NFL together, and that is huge. Before Thursday night's matchup in week 7, he had a career high in route participation in week 6, leading to 11 fantasy points and a touchdown. His route participation has been increasing every single week. 18% in week 2, 30% in week 3, 35% in week 4, continuing from week 4 to 7. In the Saints game where he had 68% of the routes, leading to 5 receptions for 50 yards. Clearly the number 1 option here. Courtland Sutton was absolutely nowhere to be found. He didn't get a single target. He is also a candidate to be traded at some point in the season. I'm not banking on that, but if it does happen, Troy Franklin to the moon. But you could look at this offense and see Vele also is getting a good amount of snaps, another rookie for this team. But his percentages actually went down compared to last week, 62% to 43% from week 6 to 7. His route participation is taking a hit as well. Franklin looks to be on the way up. He's had a 23.4% target per route run mark this year, making a pretty good case for him. Him having experience playing with Bo Nix in college and now the NFL, later down the line of the season, as Bo Nix gets more acclimated to the NFL, he's going to grow with him and be a great option. You can stash him as well. But another wide receiver that has his roster percentage increase skyrocketing like crazy is Ricky Pearsall, and I 100% agree with it. You need to be rostering him if you haven't already. I'm sure you've heard everything you need to know about him already, so I'll give you the stats you don't know. Ricky Pearsall ran 32 routes out of the potential 37 last week. That is an insanely high route participation in his first week back from the injury. I'm not going to talk about it. That's a really good sign that he's playing that many snaps in his first game back. And now we have Debo with pneumonia, hospitalized, fluid in his lungs. He's said to be out for like 2 weeks. That's not good. We also have Brandon Ayuk, unfortunately, missing the rest of the season as well. So, like the Buccaneers, there's no wide receiver one in this offense. With Debo and Ayuk being out, it opens up 15 plus targets a game. They have to go somewhere. Jawan Jennings, George Kittle, and Ricky Pearsall are going to take the plus side of them being out of the offense. We also know that slot wide receivers statistically get more targets on average. You look at Amon-Ra, he plays almost primarily in the slot. He has a 30% team target share every year. So does CeeDee Lamb. And Ricky Pearsall played 18 snaps out of the slot last week. That's 2 times more, the second highest wide receiver. He could be the number one go-to guy out of the slot. But a guy that everybody is forgetting about, we still need to be stashing, is Jalen Tolbert. Ever since his breakout game against the Steelers where he put up 21 fantasy points, he had 10 targets, 87 yards, the game-winning touchdown, he went quiet, and people have been dropping him and not really putting much respect on his name, to be honest. He put up 8.3 fantasy points the week after in week 6, facing a bye week in week 7, and so his name just hasn't been in the news. It's crazy how fast the narrative changes and how fast hype goes from one player to the next, and people drop these guys. Brandon Cooks is still projected to be out until week 10. He's on IR. That's the earliest he can come back. There's still no guarantee that it will be then. It might even be longer. He is the wide receiver 2 on this offense in a Cowboys team that loves to pass. They are one of the most pass-heavy teams in the NFL. That's not going to change. Tolbert has been seeing his snaps increase. He's averaging a 90% snap share since Brandon Cooks' injury. He's the wide receiver 11 in red zone routes run per game, still averaging over 10 fantasy points a week. For the same reasons we were adding Tolbert before the breakout game, we're still going to be adding him here, and he's on this list. Go ahead and stash him. But keeping it with the running backs, Ray Davis is going to be a guy that should be added still. We talked about him last week being a very high-value handcuff. He's shown that and more. His snap share has significantly decreased with James Cook being healthy at 24% last week. It's still not terrible though. He saw 5 attempts on the snaps he did get. It was more of a blowout. Ty Johnson also saw more snaps because of that compared to his expected numbers. He led the team in third down snaps. He also tied the goal line roll with James Cook pretty evenly, but he only had 1 touch the entire game. So all of those snaps doesn't really mean anything if he's just being put out there as a decoy. But Ray Davis was also affected by this blowout. He had 1 touch in the second quarter, 4 in the third, and 1 touch in the fourth quarter. The numbers don't tell the full story for him though. Even last week, on the little amount of touches he did have, he was insanely efficient, and James Cook has never really been a workhorse RB1 kind of guy in this Bills offense. There's no reason, there's no law saying that he has to be that, especially when you have a guy like Ray Davis that continues to average over 5 yards per carry and move these chains and be really efficient. He had 4.85 yards per carry against the Jets, one of the tougher run defenses in the NFL. He followed that with 8.2 yards per carry against another really good run defense last week. That yard per carry mark was by far the highest the Titans have allowed all season. I expect Davis to get about 5 carries, maybe 6-7 touches a game next to James Cook. Now that they have Amari Cooper, they might actually be winning games by a lot and put him in more. But another running back we need to be stashing is Kamani Vidal. Back-to-back games with decent usage here, considering you do still have J.K. Dobbins in this offense at a workhorse level. We did see Hassan Haskins get 2 carries last week. His snaps weren't anything important. They didn't get much third down snaps, but the routes run per game for Kamani Vidal is very important and very real compared to his percentage of actual snaps played. I do expect his path to upside here to be through the receiving game. He is very efficient in that, and J.K. Dobbins does have more of a lengthy injury history. We already know Gus Edwards is on IR, which is giving him this opportunity in the first place. We can't roster guys off speculation of injury alone, but you look at the history, there is a decent chance of him missing a game or two. Most running backs do, and he would have no choice but to be the RB1. Speaking of those running backs though, Jalen Wright is still a guy we need to be adding probably sooner now than later. He might not be the most involved running back this year, which, I mean, he's the RB3 on his own team. You kind of have to expect that. He only saw 9% of the snaps last week against the Colts. That is really bad, but the good news is that 9% was 6 snaps, and he saw a touch on 5 of those 6 snaps. So even though he was on the field for a lesser number of snaps, he still got the same amount of usage that he's been seeing all year, so it's not a bad sign. And like J.K. Dobbins, Mostert and Devon Achane both have a lengthy injury history. If one of them were to miss a few games, he would come in and get some run. He is insanely efficient this year. He's been averaging over almost 5 yards per carry. And when you have Tua coming back into this offense, which he's already practicing and expected to return in week 8, if not week 9, the second one of these guys goes out, Jalen Wright's going to be the first guy off the waiver wire. Or if the Dolphins start being the Dolphins again and start blowing out teams, he's going to get more run on top of that. Once Tua is back in this offense, Tyreek starts going off, Waddle starts going off, everybody starts seeing fantasy success, people are going to be very quick to grab these guys off the waiver wire from the Dolphins, so you want to get in before all of that happens. But if you're looking for a tight end, number one, I have to say, if K. Dotton is there, please make him your number one option. He's likely rostered in every single league by now, but if you don't have Jatavion Sanders, make him your number one option. There's been a ton of injuries at the tight end position for the Panthers this year, which is allowing him to shine and see a 74 and 73% route participation percentage in week 5 and 6. Continued into week 7. His targets per route run, and air yards are all increasing by the week, which made him pop off in week 7 for 6 receptions, 61 yards, and a career high in pretty much everything as a rookie here. His time on field has been increasing every single week, which is what we love to see. This Panthers team is not great, but again, there are rumors that Deontay Johnson could get traded, opening up more targets into this offense. He gets 2 positive tight end matchups here against the Broncos and against the Saints coming up. He's definitely worth a hold for later down the line of the season. We don't know what could be happening with this quarterback situation. It could be good for the tight end position. If you're looking for a quarterback, Drake May is going to be that guy for you, but you should be adding him and stashing him with caution here. He's had over 20 fantasy points in his first 2 games starting ever in the season. He gets some insanely tough matchups here against the Jets, Titans, and Bears in his next 3, which is not a good sign, but he is one of only 3 quarterbacks to score 20 or more fantasy points in the last 2 weeks. The guys that are also with him there are Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. This offense is a lot more efficient with Drake May in it. They've improved by almost a touchdown a game. With Jacoby Brissett, they were averaging 11.2 offensive points a game. With Drake May, they're averaging 18.5. That's a good increase. He has a little bit of rushing upside as well if you need it. Just be aware, these next few matchups probably won't be the ones you want to start him in. But looking ahead for defenses in week 9, we can stash to be ahead of the waiver wire and everybody else scrambling to get them. The Ravens are going to be your number one option. They are rostered in more percentage of leagues than the rest of these though. They get the Browns this week, followed by the Broncos the week after that. Those are 2 really, really good matchups for them. But if you can't get them, which I assume is going to be a little bit harder, the Chargers is my number one option outside of that, considering how low their roster percentage is. The next matchups for them are the Saints, Browns, and Titans. Amazingly bad offenses that they get to play against, and they have a pretty good defense, not allowing too many points this year. They're averaging 9 fantasy points a game, and I have them projected for over 8 in these next 3 matchups each. Followed by the Titans, who get the Lions in week 8. Not a good matchup by any means. I would not be starting them. But then the Patriots in week 9. May, he's good, but he's not allergic to turnovers. We've seen that so far this year. The Patriots offensive line is terrible, leading to a higher percentage of sacks, which is fantasy points again. And the Chiefs is going to be the last defense here. They get a matchup against the Raiders in week 8, a very, very good one. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers the week after that, probably with no Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. And then they get the Denver Broncos in week 10, followed by the Buffalo Bills, the Panthers, the Raiders, the Chargers, Cleveland, and Houston to finish out the fantasy football regular season. That's a really, really good stretch of games. You want to be stashing them for the rest of the year if you can. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next one coming very, very soon with our rankings for this week of fantasy football.